Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the Stewartry Area Committee. I would like to let you know at this point that this Area Committee meeting will be live streamed on Teams and that a recording will be available online shortly after the finish of the meeting. Members may notice when calling members to speak, I will refer to them as formally using their title, example, Councillor Smith, so that it is clear who are councillors and who are officers. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you are not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you are in a chamber, you can also do this on your iPad or iPhone. Please do not repeat contributions already made by other members. No material to be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be taken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either leave the team meeting for that period of time and write leave in the Teams chat, and then join when you rejoin the meeting. And then we can keep track of whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly, taking their time and speaking directly into the microphone when making contributions. When referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. Similar to the process now followed in full council, when considering any motions or amendments that are substantive in nature, I will call a recess where necessary so that I may seek governance advice on competency. This is good practice in governance terms and also provide for governance to be able to collate and circulate the items to said motion amendment to members in order so that they have the opportunity to properly review it. I hope this makes the process more effective and seek member support in implementing this. As members may recall, the pre-election guidance was emailed on the 12th February 2026 and again on the 5th of March 2026 with further advice. The guidance is there to ensure that as a council we operate in a politically neutral way in the run-up to the election. The pre-election period begins on the 16th of March and ends on February the 8th of May 2026. In terms of the guidance, I will highlight the following. Councils are prohibited by Section 2 of the Local Government Act 1986 from publishing any material that appears to be designed to affect public support for a political party. Publicity is defined very widely. It includes any communication in whatever form addressed to the public at large or to a section of the public. Worth further highlighting that publicity also includes the streaming of meetings online. These obligations apply all year round but are particularly sensitive during a pre-election period, so please bear this in mind in today's meeting. I would now like to take the opportunity to provide a brief update to members of the Stewartry Area Committee Community Engagement meeting held on the 3rd of March at Castle Douglas Community Centre. 3 organisations who received council funding for 2025-26 were invited to tell us more about the impact of the funding they had received on their individual projects. We received presentations from the Community Pantry in Dalbeattie, the Loch Ken Trust and the Kukubri Fringe, which had been successful in securing tackling poverty funding, discretionary grant youth funding and Kukubri Common Good funding. The presentations were well received by all in attendance and there was an opportunity for discussion about potential future collaborations, and it was a valuable opportunity to find out positive impact the area committee funding is having on delivering local priorities. And I will have to say I thoroughly enjoyed that evening and met some people I've not seen before. We've had a practice in the Stewartry of receiving local celebrations, but we'll do that next meeting because we have a very full agenda. And I will say in advance that there will be a comfort break at about 11:45. We are joined this morning by the Ward Youth Councillor, Joshua Wells from Dean Glen Kens. Thank you, Josh, for coming. So, item 1, Sedevant apologies. Could I ask the clerk, Claire Rogerson, for Sedevant and apologies, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I can confirm we've got 6 members present here at Dar Road this morning, being yourself, Chair, and Councillors Howie, Drysdale, McFarlane, Stitt and Young. We've also got our Youth Councillor here too, and I've received apologies from Councillor Blake. Remaining members not present. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any statement of connection or declaration of interest to declare based on the definition? A statement of connection for transparency reasons, member may wish to make a public statement, or a declaration of interest where members would require to leave the meeting for that item. Do we have any statements or declarations? No, thank you very much. Can I just also note that we are taking item 7 just after item 5, so we swapped a couple of items in the agenda to accommodate one of the speakers. Item 3, members of the minutes of the previous meeting, 19th of November 2025. Are we happy to approve these?
Happy to approve, yeah.
Thank you. I take that as approved. Item 4 is an application for financial assistance from Kukubri Common Good Fund, report by Head of Thriving Communities. I would say I'm welcome to welcome Lindsay, but do we have our community rep available? Okay. So she hasn't got anything. So Kimberly Phillips, our ward officer, is with us to answer any questions. Kimberly, have you got anything to add to this report for any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. I have nothing to add to the report.
Thank you. So recommendation 1 is to agree to withdraw delegation from the Common Good Fund subcommittee. I trust we're okay with that. And then we need to make a decision on an application. Kimberly, could you speak to that, please, just to take us through it?
Yep, so the application is from Core Path 13 Group. They've applied to Kukubri Common Good for £20,000 towards the project. They also have quite a flexible funding package that they've put together so they can adjust this to respond to the outcome of any funding applications. They've also had positive feedback from the National Lottery, who wish to support the application and do so in principle if they can secure some matched funding, at least £8,000 match funding. The available free income from Kukubri Common Good is £7,200, but in the report it also says that members may be minded to support this application beyond the £7,200 that's available, and they may do so by drawing on the Common Goods cash balance, with future free income reimbursing the fund at a later date.
Thank you. Do members have any questions or queries? Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support this application. I think it's excellent. It's a very popular walking path, used extensively. However, I've one or two thoughts. First of all, occasionally this path is used by trail bikes or motorised quad bikes, and I'm not sure if it's this group's responsibility, but I would like some sort of gate up to stop, obviously not stop cyclists, but to stop quad bikes gaining access to this path, because they really do make a mess of it. I know the police have been informed, and the people have continued to do it. Probably about once every couple of weeks you'll see motorised cycles cross-trail motorised bicycles using this path, and they really do rip it up. My So that is a request for some sort of gated access, not to stop cyclists, but to stop quad bikes gaining access to these paths. My other thoughts are GSF and the Community Council upgraded this path probably about 6 years ago. And sadly, about 6 months after it was upgraded and looking absolutely superb, we got the highest tide I've ever seen, and it washed part of the path away. So I know the projected covering is once again a material called dust, which has been used within the past 6 months to upgrade the part of the path nearest the town. But I'm still concerned that high tides, and the tides are getting higher, will be destructive towards this new construction of the path. I'm just wondering if there's any sort of holding material. You'll see these plastic grids that keep surface dust and things in place rather than just laying it on. But I'm sure GSF, John Smith Fencing, and the people responsible for upgrading the core path will be looking into this. But that's my two concerns, Chair. First of all, access to motorised vehicles, not bicycles with the electric capacity, but motorised vehicles. And I have a concern that the good that's done with upgrading the path may be swept away with our increasing high tides. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Kimberly, have you got any response to that, or is that something we need to check on?
Thank you, Chair. The only thing I would say is I don't think the gate is part of the project, but that's certainly something that I'm sure the group would be able to have a conversation with our environment team to discuss what opportunities there might be. And again, in terms of the, there could be a conversation also about the concerns that Councillor Young has raised.
Are you happy with that? Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to reinforce Councillor Young's statements. In relation to the path, it is one that I use, and I know that it has been covered previously and has washed away. And when I was reading through the proposal, I was a little bit concerned in relation to its sustainability in a similar way. This is a path that I looked at not long after I got elected, and someone directed me towards the path up towards the lifeboat station, which had been recovered, and it seems to have been done in a more substantive way, and it's an all-weather path that's there. And I'm just wondering if perhaps some consideration could be given to having a look at that as a means of a template of what to use. I appreciate, though, that what we have in front of us is an application for funding for what is proposed. I'd like to support it, and I think that if it's necessary to go to the £8,000 to get secure the other funding, then I think we should do that. But I do still have some concerns about the sustainability of what it is that we're putting and the value for money that we might get from it. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a response to that, Kimberly, both in terms of the value and the material?
Thank you, Chair. I've not really got anything to add in terms of the material. I think there's an opportunity for further conversations about that, though, in terms of the project.
And in terms of the value of whether it's possible to stretch to the £8,000, I wonder what people think of that to allow them to get the match funding.
Chair, if I could come in. Kimberly, would it be helpful? Could you just clarify that if members choose to go beyond the balance of 7,200, then that's something that's possible in line with the Common Good's ambitions previously? I think that's the hinted at in the report, just for clarity, that members are clear in terms of making a decision based on free income that would be due to come in the next financial year.
Of course. Just for absolute clarity, there's £7,200 free income available, but it also does say in the report under 4.8 that if members are minded to support the application beyond the free income that's available, they may wish to do so by drawing on the Common Goods cash balance and future free income will reimburse the fund at a later date. There is available cash balance to allow them if they chose to go up to £8,000.
Thank you. Is this something that we have someone who's available to propose, or?
Yeah, happy to propose goal recommendations, thanks.
Happy to second.
And are we all agreed? Is that for the 8,000? Yeah, okay. So we note the remaining estimated free income from 25-26 is 7,200. We note the great criteria for funding as detailed in Appendix 1, and we've considered and we will agree the applicant award for £8,000, which takes slightly more than the free income. Item 5, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, Stewartry Area Performance Report, report by Head of Thriving Communities. Our next report asks members to consider the performance of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Report for the Stewartry area. As always, it provides a thorough and detailed set of information for us to review, and we acknowledge and appreciate the service's continued commitment to doing so. And we have Station Commander Chris Ross here with us to answer any questions. Welcome, Chris. Is there anything you would like to add to the report before I open the floor for questions and comments?
Thank you, Chair. Nothing to add at this time.
So do we have any questions or comments? Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, members. Thank you very much for the report, Chris. Again, it's very detailed, and for all the work that you do. Obviously, there's been a lot of concern in Scotland because of the latest fire in Glasgow. It was just to check that you, as a team, are able to liaise closely with the council to check that those shops selling vapes, etc., are closely monitored. I know it's a very difficult situation we find ourselves in, but it was just to get your feedback on that. I think also some clarification for people in our community as to how you actually extinguish fires such as that, because my understanding is it's not water. So just a little bit more level of understanding for us so that we can reply to constituents. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. So, the first part of your question, our prevention team, or an enforcement team, I should say, do engage with duty holders, so people who own these shops. They engage with them, help them, support them with their risk assessments to make sure that they are compliant with fire safety legislation, and they deal with local authorities, and they do the best they can to ensure that the information that they have around storage and the selling of vapes and other lithium-ion products is done as safely as possible. But it's essentially down to a risk assessment, and it's the owner that's required to carry out their own fire safety risk assessment. We there to support them through that. In terms of extinguishing these things, it is an emerging risk. Excuse me. There, lithium-ion batteries and batteries that are fitted into vapes and our smartphones and laptops that we all have in here. They are numerous, and we've all have them at home. To be rest assured, due to the numbers that we all do own, fires with these things are rare, but they are self-sustaining. In the chemical breakdown of a fire, they generate their own oxygen, which intensifies the fire and allows them to continue to burn. So it is essentially, at the moment for us, it is like a battle of basically water, really, to cool them down, because they are generating heat. As you'll have seen from the footage from the other day, there's a lot of water required, but they do continue to burn. They do give off rather harmful gases as well. So it's important that we have a cordoned off area. We are away from the fire, unless we're in obviously our BA sets. So again, it's an emerging risk. I like to consider it as same as we would consider any other hazardous material. If we had a fire with hazardous fuel or something, we just deal with it as more of a hazardous fire, as opposed to a more standard fire of domestic properties. Does that make sense? Answer your question.
Are you happy with that? Are there any further questions? Councillor Stitt.
Thanks, Chair. Chris, just how are the figures for retained firemen in the Stewart? Are they still quite healthy, or are you still struggling to fill vacancies?
Go on, Councillor. We're doing all right in some areas. We are continuing to. I'm always recruiting. I'm always looking for someone to knock the door of a local fire station and come in and have a chat with either myself or the watch commander who's there. I'm open to discussions with anybody. But the numbers I have, we've recently recruited someone at Gatehouse and another at Kukubri. But at the same time, just this year, we lost someone at Kukubri. So it's a constant battle. It's very, very difficult in this area. I do, as I say, I'm encouraging anyone to come in and have a chat. Knock on the door of the fire station. If you know someone in the area who works for one of these fire stations, please get in touch with them. And if you're something interested, let's come in and have a chat. We've moved away from you must work in, for example, Kukubri and live here. I'm happy to have a discussion with anyone who maybe lives here, works in Dalbeattie, works in Dumfries, anywhere. We can split up their availability of their contract just to maximise what we can get. People's work and living arrangements are far different to what they were 20, 30 years ago. We have to be more flexible, and we are. I'm more than happy to. So to get back to your initial question, I could do with a few more, but what I will say, what I've got, those stations and those crews are doing a phenomenal job at keeping them appliances on the run. They are very committed, and it's very, very restrictive. I will say that it's very restrictive, but they do their very best to keep those appliances on the run. And then when there is a shortage, we have systems in place so we can bring people in, or a whole-time appliance can come and support. But that's very rare. They normally manage themselves. But again, I would like more.
Thank you. Happy with that, Councillor Stitt?
That's fine. Thanks, Chris. Cheers.
I've just got a clarification for those of us that represent Abbey Ward because of the split between this deal and the Stewartry and the statistics and how they're reported. Is it possible just to, because there's nothing in this deal and it's all in Stewartry, to just that clarification, please?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chair. So, in terms of this split and the data being a little bit skewed, as far as I'm aware, so the report you're seeing now, this report is a fairly new report. I think you'll agree. I think this is only the second time I've submitted this style of report. The report you had previously was collated from what would have been a legacy D&G system. However, the districts and the wards were still ultimately the same. So when I moved from this deal to taking over the Stewartry, I was surprised to see things like DGRI and places in this report when I think it should be in this deal. So it has been, it's a legacy thing. In terms of changing what we receive here, so just for a little bit of context of what you receive and how this is populated, if an appliance from one of the stations in Stewartry attends an incident, the incident commander there will report on that incident in a separate system. So he or she will report all the data that they have from that incident in there, and then the system that generates this report pulls data from there. This report now is a standardised report for the whole of Scotland, and using a different system to what we're used to. And as you can imagine, whilst we will look to make a request, it's in a queue of everywhere else in Scotland at the moment. So, and it might not be quite at that priority that you would like to see, but it's certainly something we can look at and how we can change in the short term. I'm happy to suggestions or what you'd like, but what I can't offer and promise is we can make a change to this style of reporting in the short term. It's going to have to become an IT system thing, which is a way above my capacity to understand. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. That does help. And we are incredibly grateful for the reports that we do get. I'm just going to ask Claire, as clerk, we included a sort of statement in the NISDIL minutes last week, and I'm wondering if we could just put something in the minutes to clarify, so anybody that reads them actually can understand how these stats work.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, we can certainly put a statement in the minutes to provide that clarity that all the Abbey data is in this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you for the report, Chris. I don't have any complaints about the format. I think it's excellent. And I think especially the summary part at the bottom of each page, which actually explains what we see pictorially. So I think that's excellent. Thank you very much. And it's really nice to see the evolution of the reports and the comments that we've made previously about trying to get some of that information that's clearly been sort of dealt with. My question is in relation to Kirkcudbright Bridge. I know that we've had conversations previously, and I'm just wondering how it's affecting and impacting on your delivery of service or availability of staff. I know that previously when it was completely closed, you did comment that there were some issues about staff availability because of accessibility. So just wondering if it's improved any. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So obviously, it does have an impact. There's no denying that. Where it does have an immediate impact for us is we certainly have two members of staff who live on the other side of the bridge in the Merse area. So it creates a little bit of a bottleneck for them responding to the station. You know, on-call firefighters don't respond under blue lights to the station. They drive at normal road speeds under normal road conditions. So, as you know, there's obviously an extra set of traffic lights for them. So that does impact their attendance times to the station. Then, of course, any appliance movements that would require to go over there, now they do have a further journey. As of yet, I've not had any reports from the watch commander at that station to say that anything has been adversely affected, that they couldn't attend, or they could have, the outcome would have changed had they been there a few minutes sooner. But having been at Kirkcudbright Station on Monday night when they did get a fire call, the two members of staff who on that side, they were the very last to reach the station. So it does have an impact there more than the appliance movement.
Are you happy with that, Councillor McFarlane?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Any further questions or comments? So we've scrutinised the performance report for the Stewartry for the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service for 2025-26 quarters 1 and 2. And thank you very much for your attendance, Chris. So we're now going to take item 7, slightly out of agenda. This is addressing depopulation. Stewartry area report by Executive Director Enabling and Customer Services. This report presents findings from the Addressing Depopulation research and outlines key population and demographic trends within the Stewartry. Firstly, the population has grown only slightly over the last 20 years, but since its peak in 2008, it's actually gradually declined, with all wards seeing a fall since 2011, except for Castle Douglas and Crocketford. As we might have expected, we see a clear shift in local demographics. There are fewer children and fewer people of working age, while the number of older residents continues to rise across all age groups from 55 upwards. And finally, housing pressures remain a concern, with high levels of second homes and short-term lets higher than the Scottish average, creating particular challenges to some communities. Members are asked to consider the issues raised with particular attention to the findings in paragraph 417 to 421 and the appendix. The full council meeting scheduled for 26th of March will consider the overall findings from the research programme along with input from our area committee and all other area committees. The policy officer, Andy Reid, is online to assist member with any questions. Thank you for being available, Andy. do you have anything to add to the report before I open up to questions?
No, nothing further to add, and thanks again for accommodating my time.
Open for any members' questions or comments, please. Do you have one? Councillor Young.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you for this report, Andrew. It's very interesting. I'm being a bit picky, I suppose. Page 70, 4.18, the last period is 2011 to 2011. Should that be 2011 to 2021?
I would expect so. Apologies, Councillor Young, it would be a typo.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And it's nice to know that Ward 4, Castle Douglas and Crocketford is suffering a population increase. Thank you.
Councillor Stitt.
Thanks, Chair. Just on housing, following on for last week's in this deal, we had a seminar with Wheatley Group, and it's quite interesting to see that they're doing a big investment in housing, but the biggest problem was that it's got to be in the Dumfries in the far west. It's a pity we couldn't get more housing in the Stewartry, which would be beneficial. But I did visit the site at Springhome last year, and that was an excellent piece of work that was done by Wheatley Group. It's just, as I say, it's a pity we couldn't get more in the area, Andy.
Thanks, Councillor Stitt. I think obviously we discussed this last week at Nisdale Area Committee, and we are going to be monitoring both the Springhome, the Johnston Bridge, and the Leswold developments, sort of particularly focusing on those small population areas to see the impact on the sort of the residents or on the population change, and to see whether there's more families that move into those accommodations and what impact that has on other local services.
Happy with that? Councillor McFarlane and then Councillor Drysdale.
Yeah, thank you for your report, Andy, and thank you also for your response in relation to my inquiry the other day about Auchencairn. In relation to the report, we have discussed previously in relation to education and the closure of schools and the attraction of families into the area. We subsequently had a seminar with education who stated that they were closely working with you. Can you just outline what work we are doing in relation to education to make sure that we're not closing schools, which means that there's nothing to attract young families into the room? So if you could just outline what it is that we are doing, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor McFarlane. Yes, so we engage with education with regards to sort of monitoring the stats and feedback. We've also engaged with them through the report, and one of those aspects, as you quite rightly sort of picked up, is the access to educational opportunities, and that access will vary depending on the type of the accessibility that an individual has or is willing to sort of travel, and that time sort of gap. So yes, I'm working with Lauren, so we do discuss this. I would expect on the back of these reports that we'll continue to sort of work in a bit more detailed capacity about options available going forward, and what that sort of phraseology of access means in relation to education.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. Any further questions? I do have one. Can we just have confirmation, Andy, for how the Abbey stats are reported? Because obviously they were in the Nisdale report as well.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Councillor. Yes, indeed, the Abbey stats are it's one ward. That's the lowest that we can break down population numbers that we're provided at the moment. However, we are expecting a low-level sort of information coming from the census around about May 26. I can't guarantee that we'll definitely get them because it's a national publication. So hopefully we'll be able to start breaking it down into an even smaller location and sort of get some more sort of specific town data and small population areas.
That would certainly be welcome. Any further questions? Councillor Drysdale.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much, Andy, for the report. I think it's a sort of minimised report after the seminar that we had, because there was a report commissioned by yourself. Is that right? So it's sort of in the back of Councillor McFarlane's point on education, Andy, on 4.11, that very much in that seminar we were drawn to the information that, yes, depopulation is often caused by the lack of education, which we are seeing because we're losing people left, right and centre. I'd like to draw members' attention and your attention to a case that I'm able to talk about. So a family had to leave, a radiographer at Dumfries Hospital, 4 children. They're now having to return to the Stewartry because they will get some help with childcare, and hopefully the constituent concerned will get back to work at the hospital, which we're very much in dire need of. However, it's going to be really difficult to get those 4 children back into the one school, so transport is going to be a massive challenge for this family. So whilst I do accept that you've fully embodied in 4.11 the education summary, and we're up against it in terms of the monies that we receive from the Scottish Government for education, I'd really like us to think going forward about how we can embody that and maybe create some kind of central unit for education. I know Councillor Young's talked about that over the years as well, with more sports facilities. There's a big growth at the moment in pickleball, which actually I attended last night, which encompasses all ages and keeps people fit. So it was just really to get your views as to where we can go, how the council can work better with education and the housing providers. I know Jamie Little's working really hard to bring more affordable housing, but we as councillors are working with short-term let providers to try and find accommodation behind the scenes for people trying to return to the area because of the worldwide situation we find ourselves in, and it is a bit disturbing to say the least. So just really a little bit more, you've probably already answered it via Councillor McFarlane, but just if you can give us something more on that, I'd be very grateful. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Councillor Drysdale. I think what you've picked up there very sort of concisely is that the 6 factors are all linked together. It's not just that education is the element of it, it's how you access that education opportunity. So it's what transport opportunities are available. Do they have their own transport? What sort of time distance it is to travel there. So then we go on to the housing element, is if you've got somewhere to live. There is a challenge within housing that there is sort of single people or older people living in 4-bedroom properties and trying to be able to maneuver people into sort of, they still want to remain in the location, but they'll require a smaller property that aren't available and the sort of the age of the properties. I suppose one of the bits that you also picked up on there is the sort of the concept of the pickleball, but I'll just refer to it in the terms of social interactions and that sort of casual participation and meeting people and engaging in other activities. So yes, all 6 factors are linked. We have to, I think there's an element of what we'll try to do, and we'll discuss this at the full council meeting, is the understanding and mapping of where these gaps are within certain communities, because it's not all 6 factors that may be missing, and that there may be just sort of 1 or 2 factors, and that might help direct resources or direct opportunities for us to sort of make what small investments we may have through this funding, but what other funds that we have available within the council to say, yes, actually that'll be a good direction for us to take in relation to sort of the population agenda that's going forward.
Happy with that? Thank you. Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you for letting me back in. Andy, it's a further question. It's on Ward 4, because it's just struck me that, with you saying that there's been an increase. Obviously, we've had the housing, the new housing in Crocketford and such like, and we've had the accommodation built in Queen Street in Castle Douglas. But I'm wondering, do we have any information in relation to where these people are coming from? Are they coming from other locations within Dumfries and Galloway, or are they coming from out with and populating the area? Is our population growing because of that, or is it just a transfer of people from one district to another? Thanks.
So thanks, Councillor McFarlane. In relation to obviously the data you've got there, it's only up until 2021 at the localised data, because we won't get the new census data until a little bit later, as I said, sort of May 26th. So that will give us a better indication about whether we're growing. I think on the final chart, I sort of highlight the sort of the age demographic that's changing within the region. So the population, whilst increasing, does still have that sort of drop in the working age population, but with an increase in an older population. We don't have migration data right down to sort of local area. What we do know is that people are moving to Dumfries and Galloway from the rest of the UK. That's sort of, we can break that down to the rest of Scotland and the rest of the UK. And people are moving to the area, and that is sort of an older sort of groupings, and that we have this migration away of 15 to 29-year-olds from the region. So we can only get that at the moment at the full region, but we'll hopefully when we get that sort of localized data in May, we should be able to sort of break down whether it's movement from people within Dumfries and Galloway, especially when you look at the sort of the new housing developments, people coming in to the area. The other part is that we are sort of picking up conversations with Wheatley and the other housing providers to have a look at who's going into these properties. Specifically, went out and visited the Johnston Bridge one, which has obviously got a new sort of cohort of people moving in there. But obviously the previous one in spring, it'll be interesting to see how that's having an impact upon the rest of that sort of location there. So we can't break it down right down to that small level, but we do know that obviously it's slightly older people that are moving to the region at the moment.
Thanks. Any more questions? Josh.
I would just like to ask, so I take a politics course with South West Connects, and I wanted to know how that could be promoted and encouraged for schools to use systems like that, and Dumfries and Galloway Connects, and I've heard about all these other online courses that you can take, and I was wondering if this could be encouraged to schools to use so their students could have more accessible courses.
Thanks, Josh. You're absolutely sort of pick up that element of education. We know that as sort of in the older age groups and higher education, further education, there is a need to move away, not necessarily a want to move away. So the idea of implementing sort of digital learning, working with universities, colleges, so forth, would be beneficial. We have examples of where digital learning is taking place, but probably not offering as wide a curriculum opportunity as maybe necessary. So yes, it's something that we'll pick up and look at as we go forward. But digital learning, as well as digital access to services as sort of ages are more familiar with digital usage, is something that will help sort of retain population. Yeah.
Councillor Stitt.
Thanks for letting me back in, Chair. Just following up what Councillor McFarlane said about new schemes and people coming to the area. I know that one scheme in Dalbeattie, the new road scheme, had 16 houses, and I was led to believe when it came through that there's only 2 local people got to hit them allocation houses. All the rest came without the area. I don't know what kind of age it was where they were sent to school, but it was a kind of bone of contention one of the meetings that there's only 2 local families got them houses.
Thanks, Councillor Stitt. I mean, I can't comment exactly on obviously the Housing Association and their sort of decisions for how they do their housing allocation policy. It is something that I think there is discussions happening. I'm aware that I think Wheatley have got their review up for 27 on the housing allocation policy, and but what I can't say, when you refer to them being from out with the region, were they out with Dumfries and Galloway or just out with the Dalbeattie area?
The only reason I know it's two families who Dalbeattie got the houses on. I don't know if they're within the Stewartry or out with Dumfries and Galloway.
It's certainly something that we should be sort of looking at to help us with, as well as the breakdown of the family demographics of the people moving into those properties. I think there's an opportunity, obviously, with the RSLs. They're sort of got quite fixed requirements for how they sort of allocate houses. When you have sort of the small community housing associations, and I'm aware, and it escapes me at the moment, the sort of location. Jamie's much better at this one than I am, but where they built, I think 4 passive houses, they've been able to sort of restrict them to people who had a connection with the village or with the location, and that's something that we should sort of consider. That they're sort of got a little bit more freedom to what they do and how they then sort of apply allocation policy.
Thank you. And I think certainly when we look to do the review for Wheatley for 27, the Tackling Poverty and Housing Committee can certainly hopefully have a bit of a conversation about that as well and feed in. Anything else? Right, so we note the progress of the addressing depopulation research as in paragraphs 4.1 to 4.14. We've considered the issues relating to depopulation and population change, mostly relevant to the Stewartry from this research, outlined in paragraph 4.17 to 21 and in the appendix, and we have noted the report, and this will be comments will be taken forward to next week on the 26th of March to the full council.
Thank you, members.
So now we're taking item 6, which is the Enabling and Customer Services Directorate Area Committee Performance Report by Executive Director Enabling and Customer Services. The first of these reports providing performance information on the selected success measures and projects for the Stewartry area for Enabling and Customer Service Directorate service plans for finance and procurement, customer and digital, and governance and human resources. First of all, it would appear that our customer service centres are doing well. The number of people using them in the Stewartry is steady and satisfaction is just above 90%, which is higher than the regional average. This shows people are getting a good level of service locally. Secondly, we are making good progress in awarding contracts to local businesses. By the end of Q3, we had awarded 53 contracts to suppliers based in Dumfries and Galloway, and we're on track to meet the annual target. Our events and support for local suppliers are helping to get them ready for these opportunities. Finally, the Scottish Welfare Fund continues to be very busy, but applications are being handled quickly. Crisis grants are processed in under a day, and community care grants in just over 10 days. It's expected that the budget will last for the rest of the year. Overall, the report shows steady performance and strong support for our communities, and members will note that project on depopulation research, we've already just considered that. We have with us a number of people to help out. I'm just going to ask Kirsty to confirm who we have.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning. The officers here to support the report are Dave Sawyer, Communications Manager, Elaine Weir, Customer Excellence and Development Officer, Lorna Campbell, Revenues and Benefits Manager, and Karen Scott, Procurement, Commissioning and Payments Manager.
Do any members have any questions on any of these sections in this report? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this report. It provides valuable insights. I'm looking on page 63, 4.71, the crisis grants, and I see in the Stewartry there have been 471 crisis grant applications made, of which 331 were successful, so 140 people received nothing. I'm amazed that they can process crisis grants in 0.7 days. I think that's absolutely excellent because these people will be desperate for funding. So I'm pleased we're coping so quickly with that. A couple of quick questions. The 140 people who didn't receive, I wondered if you could give a broad answer why their applications were unsuccessful. And I'm also wondering with concern about the cost of heating oils. And I know the Stewartry is very rural and a lot of outlying properties use heating oils for heating and hot water. Would that be an acceptable application for a crisis grant to help the cost of a heating oil delivery to keep them warm and safe over the winter? Thank you.
I think that may be a question for Lorna. Who else may take it?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'll take that. Thank you, Councillor Young, for the question. So, normal reasons why people don't receive award for crisis grant, there can be a variety of reasons, obviously, but they have applied for something that is not eligible under the scheme. So, crisis grants normally covers food and energy, so it may not have been what they've applied for. We also can exclude people if they have applied more than 3 times in the previous 12 months. So that's the maximum awards any one person can receive. So that tends to be the normal 2 reasons why someone wouldn't qualify for a crisis grant. In those cases where they don't qualify, we will always signpost them to other help. So we would signpost like for fuel to agencies that may help, like Lemonade, or we would signpost them to food banks in their local area. So we always, even though it's a no answer, provide some sort of guidance or support for referrals. The question on heating oil, heating oil is normally excluded from crisis grant applications, and certainly the delivery of it is excluded. But I know we are looking at that. Obviously, the national government made announcements about additional funding, which will be devolved to the Scottish Government. So we don't know for sure how that additional funding is actually going to be distributed across Scotland. I'm assuming that we will hear shortly how that is going to be distributed, and if local authorities are going to be included in that, because I think the announcement has been in England that they would be included in the distribution. So we're waiting further information regarding that.
Thank you. We're happy with that. Any further questions? Are we happy to accept that as it is? Thank you. So we've been asked to scrutinise the performance of the selected areas, measures and projects as summarised in 4.3 to 4.8. We now move on to the report for item 8, which is Education, Skills and Community Wellbeing Directorate, Area Committee Performance Monitoring, report by Executive Director for Education, Skills and Community Wellbeing. So our next report asks members to scrutinise the performance on the selected success measures and projects for Education, Skills and Community Wellbeing Directorate for the Stewartry area. And there are a few points to highlight to start with. Employability support is performing well. The service has already exceeded its annual target, with steady numbers of Stewartry residents progressing into jobs, self-employment or education across all 3 quarters. Progress on the anti-bullying continues, with 40% of actions completed and a clear set of next steps identified. The review has highlighted areas where young people in schools want to be more consistent, and there is early consideration of creating a dedicated post to lead this work. And youth work remains a strong strength locally. Thank you to our youth teams. Key actions within the youth service strategy are fully delivered, and young people across the Stewartry take part in gaining qualifications and contributing actively to youth council and volunteering. We are very fortunate to have a number of local people involved in the Youth Council and indeed representing our region in the Scottish Youth Parliament. And overall, the report shows steady progress, strong delivery in a key number of areas and key plans where further work is needed. Once again, can we confirm who we have to support us with questions?
Thanks, Chair. We have Jonathan, Head of Education Resources, Lee Seaton, Leisure, Culture and Wellbeing Manager, Craig Hope, Team Leader for Employability and Skills, Mark Malloy, Young People's Manager, Lauren Asher, the Youth Development Worker for the Stewartry, and Karen Ann Bryden, Quality Improvement Manager.
And I propose that we take these one at a time. So page 81, if we start off with the swimming pool attendances, if anybody's got any questions about that. Councillor Howie.
Aye, thanks. Lee, it's page 81, phase 2, capital improvements to Castle Douglas swimming pool involving wider scope of works is at the initial design stage and is anticipated to begin in the summer 27. Is there, are you in a position to say how long that's going to affect the pool being open? Is there going to be a closure of any duration that you can give us an idea of at this time?
Thank you, Councillor Howie, through you, Chair. Yes, so just to be clear for members, so that's the second and most extensive phase of works. The first phase of works, interim works, begins on Monday the 30th, so a week on Monday, which is replacing filter, circulation pumps, new dosing system, and that's just a 2-week closure. The works that are being designed that you referred to, I am awaiting a full brief and spec from our property and architects team. I do know that will be an extensive period. I don't have that full date yet, Councillor Howie. It will be an extensive period of many months. When I have that full detail available, I'm happy to then share that to this committee and to wider members as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Any further questions on swimming pools? Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you very much, Lee, and I think we're all delighted that the pool's going to be retained and the money is finally going to get spent to upgrade it. It's a much-loved facility in Castle Douglas across all ages, and the Scottish Government's remit to give children in primary school lessons will be alleviated and helped by the fact that the pool is going to have these improvements. Just a couple of questions, Lee, sorry. But number one is, are you working alongside the active travel hub? Because we fought hard to put the new bus stop in a better position so that the recessed area where the bus stop was, I think, will be used for the new plant equipment. So it's just to get some confirmation on that, if you don't mind. And hopefully it'll be safely embedded in there with lighting so that it doesn't, you know, become affected by any vandalism, etc. I'm sure you've taken that on board. And it was just, my second question involves the total refurbishment of the unit. We do get a lot of comments as to the fact that it's a bit grubby inside, the painting's peeling off the walls, the curtains were needing refurbished, and we were short of hairdryers and things. So once this work is done, will some of that budget be kept just to smarten it up and ensure that the changing rooms are safe for safeguarding, etc., for all users, disabled users, children, etc.? So 3 questions there, I think. Thank you very much, Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rysdale. So the first element in terms of the bus stop that you refer to, so it's again, it's our property and architects colleagues that are dealing with that element just now. They are in contact with active travel colleagues, because you're correct with your description there that the phase 2 works will see an enlarging of the footprint of the building as we have it just now. That will, if you're facing the swimming pool, the left hand side will be slightly enlarged, and a potential new entrance area, again all subject to the final design. So I am aware that property colleagues are speaking with active travel colleagues in terms of that bus stop being relocated from its current position to allow for that extension. So that discussion is ongoing, I'm pleased to say. In terms of the internals, again, whilst the final design proposals are worked on throughout this year, the internal layout and some of the areas you described will be very different and will be new. So the existing changing accommodation, the existing layout of the movement around the building will be very different. That in itself will mean entirely new fit for purpose changing accommodation, and a different position from it is just now. That won't be curtains, that will be full enclosed cubicle doors, etc., etc. So again, as we get the full design worked up with colleagues, I'm happy to continue to keep members, and not just the local ward members, up to date, but through the service committee as well. Thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you very much, Lee. This is great news. I think the community will be delighted. So thanks very much. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Lee, for this report. And I agree with my ward colleagues that we're all delighted this work's finally starting, and it's quite extensive in its nature. Probably being a wee bit naughty, but the pool was closed for most of January. It was also shut during September, I think. I wondered if the monthly payments made by a lot of members to have access to the pool, is there any consideration of refunds for them being unable to gain access to the pool that they've paid for a considerable period of time over January and also September, October? Has there any decisions been made on refunding membership fees? Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Yes, we have been in communication with all of our leisure club members. So there are 2 aspects. First of all, the membership does provide our members with access not just to the swimming pool in Kirkcudbright and in Castle Douglas, but across all of the council operated services. So that still continued to be there, but I appreciate that involves travel. What we have written to all of our members last month is to explore and offer a goodwill refund for the difficult period, especially we've had since the Christmas period. Only part of the building was available. Fitness was still available throughout that. So We have had our responses and starting to still get responses back in from our membership on that with that refund option. The second part of the communication to our members has been in light of the planned works we have coming up beginning Monday the 30th. We know that that's going to be a 2-week closure of all wet activities. Again, the fitness suite will be unaffected whilst the filter gets changed, the circulation pumps get changed and the new dosing units installed. And what we've offered to our members is, if you wish to have your membership and payments frozen whilst we have a planned 2-week closure, let us know that and we'll take care of that. Conversely, many that are fitness members may choose to continue to use the facility because the fitness side will remain open during those works. So we've had that communication out, Councillor Young.
That's very reassuring. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you. Any further questions on the swimming pools? So if we go on to the second report, which is employability, skills and partnership, which I hope we have Craig Hope online. So this is page 85. Welcome, Craig. Has anybody got any members got any questions on this report? No. I think that's welcome. You've got away lightly with it. Thank you for being available. Page 89, the early learning and childcare primary and secondary school mothballing policy. We have John Thin available. Good morning, John, and welcome. Has anybody got any questions on this report? Not that I can see. Okay. Page 91, which is the further progress on anti-bullying across all school settings. And I just note in this one, as one of the people that kind of raised the notice of a motion to look at the bullying policy, I note that we're saying that the possibility of a dedicated post within education to focus on bullying across our settings. And I'm just wondering if you've got anything on any sort of possible timeline or how that will be developed, because I think that would be a really welcome post within the education service. Who's come for that one?
Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, Karen Bryden.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe, for that question. Yeah. This report, as you know, was written by our safeguarding manager, and that safeguarding manager, she has now retired, and we have a temporary officer in post at the moment. So again, we are looking at all aspects around anti-bullying, and what has happened to date is that the local authority Respect Me anti-bullying policy has been completed, and our colleagues in Respect Me are currently reviewing it before that is published. And our colleagues in youth work are working with us to support the development and publication of a child-friendly and young person-friendly version of the policy. And there is now that expectation that all schools will develop their own Respect Me policy, including a pupil-friendly version as well. In relation to the post that was suggested, it was a recommendation that came through the report, and I know that the interim safeguarding manager is meeting with other colleagues, Councillor Lowe, another councillor who brought this to through committee, and is meeting with them to discuss this further. At the moment, I don't have any update to progress for that role, because obviously funding would be required to create a new post.
Thank you for that, and I would say this is a really important area of work, and I know that it's something that the Youth Council really raised. Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's actually a question for John Thin. It's in relation to page 89, where we talk about completed milestones. And I know that we've done the collation of teacher registration and contact time data. But of course, there was a recent risk of industrial action. And I believe that matter's been resolved. And I'm just wondering how prepared we are to resolve our staffing issue in relation to contact time, because obviously it will impact on numbers. So do we have any sort of idea as to how that will impact on us and how we'll manage it?
Yeah, John, go ahead.
Yeah, it was just where we're having a bit of feedback in the room. Karen and I are sharing a room just now in Malicious, so apologies. Yeah, thanks through yourself, Chair, Councillor McFarlane. It's obviously a decision made on Friday that averted industrial action, action short of strike action from the EIS in particular, and the dates that have been agreed for the phasing in of a further reduction in class contact time is now 2027 for primary schools and 2029 for our secondary schools. So we do have a little bit of time to try and ensure we've got the right resource in the right place to address that. In the primary sector, I believe we're probably in quite a good position to be able to meet that demand. In our secondary schools, slightly more challenging. As we know, we do have issues in terms of trying to recruit and attract high quality staff to the region across all of our region. We find it easier in some parts of the local authority than others. And we do have a number of schemes, incentive schemes and so on in place to try and ensure that we do encourage as many people to come and work in Dumfries and Galloway in our teaching capacity as we possibly can. So it is a moving picture. The work that we're doing just now is to look at how efficient our current timetabling is, how effective our current timetabling is in our secondary schools, and understanding where the gaps are currently, but also where the gaps potentially will be in the future. So we've developed some fairly sophisticated modelling tools to look at that whole timetabling issue and how our secondary schools do timetable our staff to maximise the use of the time to ensure that their children and young people get the best opportunities and the full range of curriculum offer that is available to them across the backdrop, as you're aware, a falling school roll, so to ensure that we've got that resource in place to meet that demand moving forward. So we have a little bit of time, as I said before, 2027 for our primary schools for the implementation of the further reduction in class contact time of an hour and a half in 2029. So there is time to do that. And hopefully the table that's been provided on, I think it's on page A90, we've done a comparison about our, if you like, our staffing formula across our Ayrshire colleagues. And as you can see on that table, we're comparable there or thereabouts across our schools, and what that would have looked like with the staffing formula across our colleagues in our Ayrshire consortium, if you like. And as I say, generally the numbers would be there or thereabout in terms of the staffing allocation that would be going to those schools if those schools were in South Ayrshire, North Ayrshire or East Ayrshire. So hopefully that gives quite a full response to that question. But it is a work in progress, and obviously that is the work that we need to do over the next wee while to ensure we've got the right staff in place, the highest quality staff we can as well. Thank you.
Are you happy with that response? Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, John, and thanks also for the author of this particular section of the report. I think we're all aware of the impact of bullying and what it can have on children, even growing into adults in later life. It affects your personality, your status, your self-esteem, everything. So I just wanted to raise the fact, John, that I'd sent a really, really amazing Instagram video to on bullying, which reached 648,000 views. And Jim Brown was really quick to get back to me, letting me know that he agreed with me that it was very effective. But I fully appreciate that for safeguarding reasons for the child that and the family that launched the video, it can't actually be shared directly within the schools. But, you know, speaking to young people, we do have the anti-bullying charter, but it's a matter of children actually reading that and the school reading that. And we all know children have much more of an attention span when it's actual visual materials that they can look at. So I was just wondering if by any chance through the youth work teams, I know we have a representative here today, thank you for coming, and through the schools, if we could even promote the use of that video for children to watch at home on Instagram or across other media, because it's extremely strong with the amount of views it's getting, and it's a really, really good video, John. So I just wondered if you could talk to us on that, because I think when we speak to young people, they're not getting enough actual visual material. It's all written, which sometimes is not always that effective, despite the very hard work you've all done. And it's great to hear there's a new officer coming on board, Karen, so that's good news. Thank you, both of you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes. Oh, sorry, we've got again a bit of feedback in the room here. Apologies. No,
We haven't got any at this end and we can hear you clearly.
Right, okay, we'll just deal with the feedback here. It's a bit strange hearing my voice repeated in my ear with a wee half-second delay. Yes, I'll continue to work with colleagues in youth work to explore the possibility of this. As you say, there's a number of resources that are available that are visual as well as that written text type.
Thank you. Is that everything that we need? Joshua.
I was just wondering, where will the easy read version for children actually be accessed for them to actually read?
Yes, that version will be fully accessible once it's finished, yes. Thanks for that, Josh.
Thanks. Anything else on that report? Just go on to the last one, which is page 93, which is our amazing youth work services. I'm aware of the amount of work that they do across and the number of people that they reach every year. Have Mark Malloy online. Has anybody got any questions for Mark? Councillor Drysdale.
Sorry, me again. Thanks, Mark. Could you just give us a bit of feedback about any progression that's going to be made with regards to Kirkcudbright? Are the children still having to travel to Castle Douglas for youth work in the evenings? Thanks, both of you. Sorry to put you on the line on that one, but I think we just need clarity as members. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Drysdale. I'll maybe start and then bring Lauren in, maybe just to give a bit more detail, but generally speaking across the Stewartry, as it is with other areas, that we are take very much a collaborative approach with the third sector partners, and there is some third sector groups already running within Kirkcudbright, but for other services we run, we do provide transport on occasions for groups, so that there's that young people are able to access as many opportunities as possible if they want to do so. But maybe bring Lauren in, maybe just to give a wee bit more detail on it.
Thank you. At the moment, yes, young people are travelling through from Kirkcudbright to attend our services in Castle Douglas, and the timings of those groups have been designed so that they link in with the updated bus timetables, so that young people are able to get to and from those services if they're travelling from other areas, which is the case at the moment.
Thank you very much. Happy for that. Any further questions? So we have scrutinised the performance of the selected success criteria and projects as summarised in paragraphs 4.3 and 4.4 and detailed appendices 1 to 7. And thank you for the presentations. We will just take, if it's okay, just a 10-minute break. Okay, welcome back. We are just actually going to complete item 8. There were 2 items at the end that we didn't cover. So page 97, continued support for the Youth Council. So Mark is ready to take any questions on this report. No? Okay, you get away lightly again. And page 99, which is common good performance. Has anybody got any questions on the common good? Councillor Howie.
Thank you, Chair. It's just regarding the working group that was set out. I must probably just state my disappointment that at no time were members invited to take part in this working group at all. Didn't approach any members of any common good committee to participate. And I would also, it raises concerns for me that there's the potential here for common good to be financially impacted by the services that have been identified in page 100. So I'm just looking for an assurance as such, if that is indeed the case, or when there'll be clarity surrounding these matters.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Howie, for your comments. As the report states, there has been a seminar for members just outlining the legal issues around common goods through a member seminar that was held in January. And from that, you'll see there are a number of recommendations that are being considered. That will form the basis of a full council report, which is planned for June 2026. And I think fuller detail will be presented to members at that time.
Lovely, thank you. Any further questions on the common good? No, thank you. So we have completed item 8. Item 9 is a Social Work Services Directorate Area Performance Report from the 1st of April 25 to the 30th of September 25, reported by the Director of Social Work Services. So our next report asks members to scrutinise the performance of the Social Work Services Directorate for the Stewartry area. Looking ahead, I'm confident that members will welcome the opportunity to see more ward and area level detail included as these reports develop over time. I am, however, pleased to see that homelessness in the Stewartry remains low, though presentations and temporary accommodation numbers have risen slightly in terms of national trends. Key improvement projects are progressing, including the new transition guidance for young people with complex needs and continued work to support care leavers into suitable housing. We have, if Kirsty could confirm who we have with us.
Thanks, Chair. We have Heather Sloan, Homeless Strategy Officer, Kay Forrest, Social Work Manager for Adult Services, and Jan Hasty, Locality Manager, on the call with us this morning.
Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Stitz.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair. It's just in pages 102 and 103 when it's giving you the charts. Abbey's not in any of them. Is there any reason for that? Because it's got Dean, Glenkens, Castledills and Crocketford, but there's no mention of Abbey Ward. And I know there's homeless accommodation and there'll be that people are in. I don't know if it's been missed or whether it's been put in just out of curiosity.
Who would like to take that?
I'll take that, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Stitt, for your question. And it struck me earlier on in the meeting that actually we have missed Abbey Ward off of this report. I will make sure that that's sorted for the next report. But the Abbey information was all included within the report to Nistio Committee. So I'll take that on board and we will ensure that's corrected.
Thanks. Is there any chance we could get that sent out just to other members here today, just so we get an update, so we haven't got to wait till our next meeting, if that's okay?
Yes, that's absolutely fine. I'll get that passed through.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on the social work? Councillor Young.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very interesting report. A couple of points I would like to make. Page 102, number of successful interventions, the second bottom category. do Dumfries and Galloway Council have any legal powers to interfere in evictions that are about to happen, where the landlord has given notice, for instance, that it may be selling the property? Do the council have any legal, apart from nudging and saying, could you hang on a bit, this person could become homeless? And secondly, if somebody from out with Dumfries and Galloway declares themselves homeless and applies for housing within Dumfries and Galloway, is that honoured, or do they remain in the area in which they live? And secondly, to complicate that, if they have some sort of disability, does that enhance their opportunities of being housed in Dumfries and Galloway, even although they live out with our region? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for your questions. In terms of intervention on tenancy evictions, when a landlord is about to evict somebody, they have a legal duty to inform the Housing Options and Homeless Service that that eviction is about to take place. And our role within that would be to advise both the landlord and the tenant on their rights in terms of the housing legislation and the steps that would need to be taken around that. In terms of anyone presenting, the Scottish Government amended the Housing Scotland Act a couple of years ago to remove the restriction that was on anybody applying to any local authority. So basically anybody within the country and within Scotland can apply to any local authority as homeless, and we would need to take the application. In terms of disability, any application would be assessed the same as anybody else applying in regards to their circumstances. So it would depend on the individual circumstances in terms of that application. I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you. Can I expand just very slightly? You talked about within Scotland could apply to Dumfries and Galloway. What about out with Scotland? If somebody from the south of England applies and they have some sort of disability, would they be eligible for being housed within Dumfries and Galloway?
The only circumstances where we would take an application from somebody from south of the border would be if they were fleeing domestic violence or violence in any form, but we would be looking into that to make sure that that was actually the case before taking an application. So if somebody presented from England under normal circumstances, we would be advising them to go and present in their own local area and down south.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Not seeing any hands up. Thank you very much for coming on board to help us today. So we note the new arrangements for performance management by area committee as set out in paragraph 4.1, and we have scrutinised the performance reports for selected success measures and projects for Stewartry area from the 1st of April 25 to the 30th of September as in paragraph 4.4. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 10, Local Place Plan Updates and Registrations, report by Head of Economy and Environment. Our next report asks members to agree a number of local place plans to be added to the local place plan register and note the progress being made by those organisations that are still in the progress of developing theirs. We will update the local place plan. So the update is positive. There are 5 plans that we will look at today: Balmaclellan, Castle Douglas, Crossmichael, Dalbeattie, and New Galloway and Kells. And they've all met the legislative requirements, and we ask for them to be added to the official register. These plans reflect extensive community engagement and set out clear local priorities covering housing, transport, community facilities, natural spaces and long-term resilience. We also note that other bodies in the Stewartry are progressing with their own plans, and we expect further submissions in due course. I would like to place on record our thanks to all the volunteers who have led and continue to support this work across all our communities. Their commitment and time have been essential in getting these plans to this stage and should be commended. And I will add to that many of these people through our community councils are volunteers, and they've had to do some training to do this and take it on board. It's been a big time commitment. Overall, this shows strong local pride in our places and a real commitment to shaping the future of our towns and villages. We have Shona McCoy, team leader, developing planner, and do we have Thomas Young? No, we've got Shona available to answer questions. Now, what I'm going to say, have you got anything to add generally before we look at each individual plan, Shona?
No, nothing further to add to the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to suggest we literally do these one at a time by community. And so the first one is Balmaclellan, and I'm actually delighted to note that one of the young person in our room today has actually written part of this on page 127, and it's great to see that people of all ages are taking part. So do we have any comments on the Balmaclellan Place Plan? No. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Drysdale.
Can I just commend you, Josh, for being involved? I think it's fantastic that young people are getting involved in these sorts of place plans, because it really helps the council and us as elected members understand what young people want, and we need to listen to you as much as we can. So I really congratulate you for taking part. I know you've already said that, Chair, but I think it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to come from local members as well. Page 153 is the Castle Douglas Local Place Plan. Do we have any comments or questions on this? Councillor Drysdale.
Again, yeah, just reiterating what you said, Councillor Lowe, as Chair, that the amount of work that's been put into this place plan has been absolutely incredible. And also the collaboration with yourself, Shona, and the rest of the team, it's been fantastic. So I know the hours that have been invested into this particular place plan, as I'm sure is the same with the other place plans. What I did want to mention was in page 177, a late addition was the possible housing solutions, which I think are going to be adopted, Shona, in LDP3, is that right? So we're all trying to desperately scrabble about to try and find small spaces that we could build houses that for our people, that, you know, to retain young people that live in the area. Can I sort of have a little bit more background on that, Shona? How does that work with LDP3? Is it as in the statement that's been made on page 1774A, whereby it should make a less onerous planning journey for developers? Is that right? I just need your confirmation, because that's what we're desperate to hear. We need to move on and make things more simple for people wanting to build. Thank you, Shona. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Drysdale. Yeah, this is the reference to the master plan consent areas that they've asked us to investigate a bit further. It is something we will take away and look at, along with the sites that have been identified in the local place plan. So we're back in touch with the community council. We were doing site assessments on the sites that they've identified through the local place plan. Master plan consent areas, though, are a whole different kettle of fish. We did try it with one site in Dumfries. Unfortunately, it wasn't successful, in that the person who ended up buying the site was not actually interested in taking forward at that time it was called a simplified planning zone. So instead they just decided to sell the plots themselves and build them out that way, rather than taking advantage of the benefits of the simplified planning zone, now master plan consent area. But as it says in the report, we will take what's in these local place plans into account when we're preparing LDP3, and we'll have an ongoing dialogue with the groups. Not just those that I should point out, not just those that have taken the opportunity to prepare a local place plan, but all our communities across Dumfries and Galloway as well.
Thank you. Happy with that?
That's actually really helpful, Chair. Can I just come back in with one more question, which I think is really relevant? Shona, we in both Dalbeattie, Kirkcudbright and Castle Douglas, I've just discovered that there is a regulation in place that for change of use, we're desperate for housing. We understand that we need to keep our commercial properties viable and operating, and that's absolutely understandable. But in the planning regulations for this particular area, a property would have to wait for a whole year until they could change the property from a commercial property to a potentially 3 private homes. If that sits at the edge of the towns, is that a UK-wide policy or just in Fleece and Galloway? Because obviously in total time, that would take up to 2 years of a year of lost income if there was nobody interested in taking it on as a commercial property, and then potentially another 6 months to a year to readapt it for residential. So just for us as members to have some understanding, is that a UK-wide policy or just in Fleece and Galloway, that year-long timeline? Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
I need to get some clarification from you, because I'm not sure if it's the protection we've put in place for the loss of community facilities rather than commercial, because if it's commercial, that would be a Scottish Government, so it would be Scotland-wide. Scotland planning's a devolved function through the Scottish Parliament, so but we can maybe have a chat about that maybe offline if that's helpful.
That's helpful. Thank you, Shona.
Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. Page 174, bottom of the first column. Bus stops need to feel safer for users. Many are in remote spots and are not overlooked, etc. Now, on the 24th of January, this may not be the correct airing of this, but I think it's so important and I need to air it. On the 24th of January 2025, winter storm Elwyn blew through this region, causing havoc, particularly with trees falling, but it also caused havoc in Springholm, where the bus stop was blown over. Now, since then, I know my fellow councillors from the ward have also been in touch with you through EMESs about replacing this bus stop, because basically people waiting for a bus in the middle of the Springholm are standing, particularly in winter when it's wind's blowing and the rain's hurling and there's HGVs going past, spraying stuff. It's a horrible wait for a bus stop. And the reply to the EMESs that we have sent as councillors basically says, we're treating this as a matter of urgency. We need support from Amy and also from the neighbourhood houses. Now, basically, I don't understand why, because you're replacing a bus stop with a much better bus stop. Surely you don't need planning permission or Amy's permission to do that. And I know Amy have spent considerable funding improving pavements in Springholm, but they didn't look at this bus stop. Now, if Castle Douglas is fortunately getting active travel bus stops, nice, happy, shiny bus stops, whereas the people of Springholm are getting nothing. They still have to stand next to a very busy main road in all weathers and wait for a bus. And I think it really needs properly treated as a matter of urgency, and I don't know who to contact to get work done on this, and I don't understand why we need Amy's permission to replace a bus stop or need neighbourhood houses permission to replace a long-standing bus stop. And I wonder if you could advise or perhaps take this request to the appropriate person within Dumfries and Galloway Council. I know it's probably Swestrands and is it funding or what is it? But the people of Springholm deserve so much better than what they're getting. Thank you.
Councillor Drysdale's just put her hand up.
Yeah, I don't know, Shona, is it through yourself, Chair, is it okay for me to speak, Shona? Because I have got an update on that, but obviously I don't wish to overrule yourself. Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Young. I know the 3 councillors in our ward have been fighting for this for a long, long time. I did receive an email. The audit had to be done through Transport Scotland and Amy, and then they came back wanting the council to look at civil contractors. So the audit has been done, and Amy are agreeing a start date, and it should be implemented, the new bus stop should be implemented by the end of March, beginning of April. So hopefully we've progressed. But it has been very arduous and extremely time consuming for all councillors in our region. But I have assurances in writing that that is now finally happening, and the bus stop, I don't want to say too much, but will actually be moved as well. And we've asked for the bus stop to face the road rather than into the houses, so hopefully that happens as well, Councillor Young. Fingers crossed.
Thank you for the update, Councillor Drysdale. I hope it's a sizable bus stop with seating in it and perhaps even a digital display showing when the next bus is due. Thank you.
Any further questions for Councillor Douglas? Okay. So the next one is page 201, which is Cross Michael. Do we have any comments or questions for this one? Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you. Just one comment. On page 205, it says local councillors who were consulted and sent a copy, myself, Councillor Campbell and Councillor Deneley, and we're not ward members for that. I did receive it, but I didn't open it. I didn't read it until I got it in these papers, so I haven't been consulted on it. Thanks.
Shona, if I could possibly bring you in, is that maybe an error in just the document that it's the wrong ward members have been listed?
Yeah, we'll need to take that away and have a look at that, because that's one of the legislative requirements that the ward members for where the local place plan's prepared need to be consulted at the final 28-day consultation period. So that's something, so we might have to pause the registration of the Cross Michael local place plan then until we can clarify that.
Could I just clarify with ward members, if they received a copy in consultation, would that satisfy your legislative requirements, Shona? I think it's an important one, that either to avoid delay if we can, if the ward members can recall being consulted on the plan.
I think we've got a couple of questions about the plan, to be honest, through yourself, Chair, which I would speak on next, if that's acceptable. But I think, well, I don't think it was sent out officially, but it was sent out via Chris Michael, who've worked really hard on it, the teams and Chris Michael. So I don't know if other members feel that's suitable, but I think we probably need to ask the questions first, if that's, and then decide at the end of the questioning if that's suitable. Thanks.
Well, do you want to take those questions now and then? Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Thanks, Chair. So again, just to commend the Chris Michael and District Community Council, because they put in a huge amount of hours on this particular place plan. And we all know that with place plans, it's what the people want. That's the whole purpose of a place plan, so that councils and councillors have a better understanding as to what communities are crying out for. So with respect to that, I'd like to draw your attention to page 212, community priorities. We as councillors have been attending traffic meetings for a quiet charter that the village is really keen to have, and the village has been very patient waiting for the 20-mile-an-hour rollout because it's on a timber transport route and there's front-facing housings, and it's very disruptive during the night for people that live there and also quite dangerous. So if you look at bullet point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on page 212, we've had 2 meetings on site with regards to adding lines at the dropped curb. The shop in particular in Cross Michael is much loved. It's really, really needed. We've got a lot of elderly people there. We've actually recently very sadly lost one of our lovely constituents. That shop is so needed. We must keep our local shops alive because we don't have the transport. We do not have the electricity hookups for people with electric cars, etc. We're not able to put them across the street there. So the shop is much needed. We've been asking for just a white line when the lines are repainted, which will go out dropped curbs and outside garages and outside people's entrances to try and protect. Now we know and understand as councillors, and the roads team have been really helpful in that we totally accept that this is not something that's put in place as a legitimate traffic order, but it does help drivers and perhaps people car sharing to acknowledge and know where they should be parking during the day. We keep having the white lines outside the drop curb pushed back on the community, and the shopkeepers and the people of the town. As you can see from the fact that the white line's been mentioned again on page 213 as part of the action plan, you'll read that 50% of the questionnaires felt that that was one of the key tasks. So the answer given to us as councillors was that despite us asking for it, and the Community Council and the Place Plan, was that no, because it might mean that it would roll out to other villages with small shops. I would fully appreciate an actual official response to that here today in Stewartry Area Committee, because the community are devastated, and again we have to attend another traffic meeting tonight on our own to represent the fact that we keep failing consistently to get what the local people want, and I'm sure my councillors would back me up on this one. If it had just been done quietly, we would have got on with it and kept the shop alive, but we're up against it again. So it was just really to get the officers' feedback. And I don't know, Shona, it's possibly not your remit, but I think we've not met this within the place plan, and we're not going to meet it. So therefore, it's not going to be accurate for us as councillors or the council, which could come up as something controversial. So just some feedback would be really helpful. Thank you, Shona. Thank you, Chair.
Shona.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think it's maybe important to highlight that local place plans are, as it says, community plans, and it's their aspirations for the future of their local community. Now, we have been trying through the setting up of the process for preparing local place plans to get buy-in from other council services for the process of preparing and also helping our communities deliver these plans. I have to emphasise the fact that these local place plans are not for the council to deliver. The council will help and support communities where possible to deliver them, but we've been very clear from the outset that this is the purpose of local place plans. As you correctly say, Councillor, it's not actually within my remit, that about white lines. That's a different part of the council. So again, it's only something that I can take away. The main driver behind the ability to prepare a local place plan was for LDP 3, Local Development Plan 3, to take registered local place plans into account. Our council took the view that we've widened it out to full place planning. So that's why some of the local place plans that are in front of you today maybe actually don't have sites for housing, for land use. They're covering a whole range of issues because we encouraged our communities to look at that using the place standard tool. So it's an action that we are looking at within the wider council, and I should say our external partners, for how we can help our communities deliver the actions and the aspirations that they have in their plans. So apologies if it's maybe not the answer you were kind of hoping for, but that's where we are with these plans.
Yeah, it's probably putting the three of us in a slightly difficult position. I don't know if my fellow councillors want to come in, but I guess we have to approve it today and just hope that the council starts to take notice of what the actual communities want and need to continue to thrive, because we're up against it at the moment across Dumfries and Galloway. So if officers and governance are happy, then I suppose we would be too, but I really would like to alert officers to the fact that we and the community really need to be as accommodating as possible would be the words I use, especially if it's not legislative. Thank you very much, Chair.
I see Councillor Harry would like to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's the whole question of what happens to these place plans as we go forward as well. There's concerns from the members and the communities itself. Why did we go to this effort if we're not going to get the support that we wish from our elected members? And we as elected members would expect the support of officers. Now, that isn't apparent in this case. That's why I would like to stick in an additional recommendation at 2.4, which is to recognise and promote the use of the one council approach in bringing these plans to fruition. So there's an expectation from officers that they will work on a one council basis, as I say, to support these communities. There's no point in going out asking them to do this and then basically take no cognizance of the work they've done. So I'd like to stick that in as a recommendation at 2.4, just to give an overview that this is what we are expecting from officers in the future. There's another question which we can look at, which is totally separate, and that is, again, going back to when we had Fiona Lees as our interim chief executive, and she said Officers recommend, members decide. I think that ethos has been lost. Members are not getting the opportunity to decide, but that's not for here, that's not for today. That's the basis where I think we're coming from. Thank you.
Councillor Dry.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Howie. I would like to second and support that recommendation with as much clout as we can possibly deliver. Thank you so much. Thanks, Shona.
And actually, it's something that I've written down as we were having this conversation that just said one council, because I know that's something that comes up in one of the future plans. It's going to be part of the same conversation. Are there any further comments? Kirsty.
Chair, just to take the opportunity that certainly, particularly within the Community Planning Engagement Service, officers across my own team and that in economic development and indeed Shona's team and others have worked collectively on this, and I'm confident that certainly it is a one council approach in terms of the support that we can provide communities to take forward their aspirations. As Shona has mentioned, lots of those aspirations are indeed driven by communities themselves and are within their own gift, and where the council can support or influence, we'll certainly seek to do that wherever we possibly can through the existing mechanisms that we have.
Thank you. Any further comments for Cross Michael? Yes, Josh.
I just noticed for under 16-year-olds and 16 to 24-year-olds on page 221, sorry, they only make up 1% each of the respondents by age. And I was just wondering how are we going to make it so more younger people participate in the making of this local place plan.
Shona, have you got anything you might be able to add to that?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. It is a good question, and it's actually one that all communities, I think, have faced in the development and engagement consultation in their local place plans. Some have been very proactive and gone into schools where they can and have tried their best. It's certainly an ongoing challenge. If I can maybe remind members as well that when we took on this opportunity for local place plans in Dumfries and Galloway, we created local place teams, which comprises a member of economic development, the development planning team, and also the ward officers. So we felt within that we had sort of the range of experience to help advise and support our communities through the range of engagement, consultation, drafting, all of that. But it is a good point that we will take away, and hopefully we can build on for the next round of local place plans and help any groups that come forward to prepare new ones. Thanks.
Are you happy with that, Josh? Right. Is that Cross Michael done? Kirsty, have you got any? Yeah, Kirsty.
Chair, could I possibly suggest we just get a little bit of advice from the report author, Shona, in relation to the legislation requirements for the consultation of elected members, and just to confirm and be reassured that the ward members were indeed consulted. I picked up from an earlier point, Shona, that's a requirement that we need to have been able to be assured of.
Yeah, thanks, Kirsty. Yes, it is a legislative requirement that the ward members for where the local place plan has been prepared must have been consulted as part of that final 28-day consultation. So Cross Michael falls into ward, please bear, I don't think that what they've referenced in their supporting statement has listed the councillors for the ward within which Cross Michael sit. Am I correct in saying that? So it would be helpful to know if councillors Drysdale, Howie and Young were consulted on the Cross Michael local place plan, and then we can just ask the community to update their supporting statements so that it's correct.
Consulted by whom? We were certainly consulted through the community. We saw their plan being put forward, and I'm quite happy to say I was consulted on this place plan, and hopefully that would meet the terms of the legislation.
Is that what is needed, Shona?
Yes, it's the community council who are the author of the local place plan sent a copy of that final version of the local place plan to the ward members.
Right. Councillor Young.
Yes, happy to confirm that we were consulted via community council meetings and informal and formal discussions. My only wish is that the action points are acted upon, and perhaps in several months' time we get feedback on how many of them are now in place, because as Councillor Howie said, we don't want this wonderful piece of work to just sit and do nothing else. We really need it acted upon, and we need feedback on the action points. Thank you.
Can I just check with Councillor Drysdale that she's happy to support in the same way as her colleagues?
Yes, happy to support. Obviously, it would be nice to have received it through the council as well, but we're happy that we've seen it through the community council. Thanks.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just come in response to Councillor Young's point, just to let members know that in some other area committees we have, well, we all have an area committee programme of community engagement. In some other areas, they have chosen to meet with the community councils who have led place plans, to meet with them just on their place plan as part of the area committee community engagement programme, and that might be something that members wish to consider moving forward, and we'll bring a report to the next area committee just on the progress of the priorities that you've selected, and it may be at that point that you actually want to pick place plans as being a theme that you look into in more detail.
Would members be happy with that? I'm seeing nods around the room. Thank you. Right. Can we move on to page 239, which is Dalbeattie? Councillor Stitt.
Thanks, Chair. I see your comments. It's on page 260. I know it's nothing to do with you, Shona, but I think it'll be a roads problem. The new layout for the, what they call the War Memorial, that is just definitely not got to be feasible, and I think roads will not agree to this, because it's actually taken away blocking a road off, and it's only got to be one access up Alpine Street and back down, because where they used to come down Alpine Street, they cut out along the front of King's Arms, knew they're going to have to come back down onto the main street. I think the community council have worked really hard in every area, and I'd like to thank you for the support, but I just don't know. I think roads are got to have a lot to say about this new layout in Dalbeattie Town Centre. It's a pity, because their work's been really good, but they just can't block off a road, and that's my problem with it.
Shona.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Stitt. Yes, we have had some conversations with colleagues in the Roads Department about the proposal that's in the local place plan, and we've advised them that obviously there's road safety, there's technical elements that they have to abide by. So they will look at it and consider it, but I think quite often, as you say, road safety and technical regulations and requirements have to take precedence. But they are very much aware of what's in that local place plan.
Thanks, Shona.
Certainly when I was first given sight of this as a draft, it looks like it could be a helpful response to that area. And we're aware that there are current discussions around the pedestrian crossing as well that kind of tie into this. Now that's a question I've actually asked out with this meeting, because it would mean refurbishing a crossing and then moving it if something like this were to go ahead. But it's something that obviously we'll just keep our eyes on as elected members. Any other comments from anyone else on Dalbeattie? Okay, and finally we go on to Kells and New Galloway on page 277. Which ward is this? Any comments on this? No. Okay. Right. Can I just check something with Kirsty a minute? Right, sorry, just right, Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, really, it's not a comment on this plan particularly. I think it's a comment on all the plans. I think it's quite clear when you read through them that the communities have engaged as widely as they feel they can. But there's a lot of hard work going into this, and this is local people who are volunteering because they care about their own communities. And I think we should actually write to them as a council and commend them for the efforts and what they've done, because I think it really is excellent work. Thanks.
Would want that to be from Chair to acknowledge
happy
each
with
one?
that.
Certainly happy to do that. So we note the Balmaclellan, Castle Douglas, Crossmichael, Dalbeattie and New Galloway and Kells local place plan supporting statements in appendices 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9 demonstrate that the local place plan legislative requirements have been met, and we had a wee discussion. Agree that the Balmaclellan, Castle Douglas, Crossmichael, Dalbeattie and New Galloway and Kells local place plans in appendices 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10 are registered by the council as local place plan and added to the local place plan register on the council's webpage. Note the progress being made by the community bodies who have expressed an interest in preparing local place plans as set out in paragraph 4.27. And can we just confirm possibly wording for 2.4, please, Claire?
Thank you, Chair. I've got written down here that you wish to recognise and promote the one council approach in bringing the local police plans to fruition, and also the supporting statement for Crossmichael. There'll be a note added just to confirm that the local ward members have confirmed their support. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, members. Now I've got...
Sorry, Chair, and also the letter of thanks to the different ones. Thank you.
Item 11, New Galloway Common Good Property Assets Update. Report by Assistant Director Transport and Infrastructure. Next report asks members to note information regarding relating to New Galloway Common Good Property Assets. We take this because there is no subcommittee for New Galloway, so it comes through to Area Committee, and the same as item 12 as well. We have Colin Freeman available to answer any questions. Have you got anything to add first, Colin?
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Nothing further to add.
Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. Thank you for the report, brief as it is. I'm wondering if you can help me understand, please, the table on page 330. It's got the lease and tenure details, and we've got owner-occupied and community asset. I understand the community asset. Owner-occupied, it confuses me a little bit, especially in relation to car parks and public toilets. And then on the end column, we've got an overall valuation and then a market value, and obviously they're at conflict. I can understand an overall value of £37,000, but a market value of £10,000. You know, if you could just explain those to me, and the last one is in the condition. What does condition B relate to, and how do we interpret that? Thanks.
Okay. Through yourself, Chair. Thank you, Councillor McFarlane. In terms of the definitions, owner-occupied and community assets, these are very technical terms set out by valuers and surveyors. And what we mean by owner-occupied is that the owner is the council, and the council will manage it on behalf of the people of the former borough. And the council actually delivers, and say delivers, activities for it. Therefore, it's owner-occupied. What I will do for future meetings, because this has been a learning journey over the last year, delivering all the reports to the Common Good, I'll include a section where there are the definitions actually explained, so that will provide clarity to members. In terms of the valuations, there are different types of valuations. The £37,000 one for the public toilets, that would be an existing use or a depreciated cost recovery valuation, where that £37,000 reflects how much it would cost to replace the toilet in the modern day. The market value is what we would expect to receive if we were to sell that plot of land. And in terms of condition, where we've got condition B, that means there's a degree of investment that is required to bring it up to a higher standard. And again, after the meeting or in the next round of committee reports, I can extract and extrapolate a little bit more in terms of what B is and what the investment is needed.
Councillor McFarlane.
Yeah, thank you for calling. That's reassuring, and that'd be very helpful. Thank you for your help.
Are there any further comments on this one? So we have noted the properties that form the new Galloway Common Good Asset Portfolio as detailed in paragraph 4.1 and the 10-year valuation condition and repairs information for each asset as detailed in paragraph 4.1. And finally, we move, well, not quite finally, sorry, item 12. So once again, this comes through to Stewartry Area Committee as they don't have their own subcommittee. I'm just trying to find it. Right. Next report, so is to consider information on the Gatehouse of Fleet Common Good Assets, property assets. So Colin is available again to answer any questions. Are there any questions for the Gatehouse? Sorry, for the Gatehouse report, yeah. Councillor McFarlane.
Happy to go with recommendations, Chair.
Everyone happy with that? So we note the properties that form the Gatehouse of Fleet Common Good Property Portfolio as detailed in paragraph 4.1 and the 10-year valuation, condition and repairs information for each asset as detailed in paragraph 4.1. And I can now say, finally, item 13. Stewartry discretionary budget performance monitoring for 2025-26, report by Head of Thriving Communities. Our next report asks members to note the performance monitoring information from projects initiatives supported in the Stewartry area. It is clear to see the positive impacts made across our wards as a result of these financial awards, and I've no doubt members will have enjoyed seeing the impacts through the photographs as well as the monitoring information provided. Sean O'Toole, Ward Officer, is available to answer any questions on the report. Sean, have you got anything to add?
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Nothing more to add to the report. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments? No. No. So we are asked to note the performance monitoring information for projects and initiatives that receive support from the Stewartry Area Committee discretionary budget for 25 to 26 as in Appendix 2. Note that a significant number of citizens have benefited from a delivery of 28 local projects where £52,221.59 was awarded to these projects and these initiatives in the local area by Stewartry Area Committee, and agreed to carry forward the balance of £631.41 from the 25-26 discretionary budget to the 26-27 budget as outlined in paragraph 4.6. And with that, there is no further matters have been raised with myself as chair. So thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance and for your questions. And we will meet again in May. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.